Hey, how's it going? My name's Paul Spey. I'm a WRAL state government reporter. I'm here with Will Doran, my colleague on the NC Capitol desk. We're coming to talk to you today about, 2-3 hours after the deadline for filing to run for office in North Carolina. And so we now know what the fields are going to be up and down the ballot. Let's start with the U.S. Senate race and what we're seeing first on the Democratic side, then we'll go to the Republican side.
Yeah, the Democratic side is really interesting. You've got former Governor Roy Cooper, of course, is the biggest name, but there's a lot of other people running. He's going to have 5 challengers in the primary in March.
A total of 5. Wow.
Yes. Yeah.
I'm surprised by that, just given that, Roy Cooper has been around. He's a 2-term governor, a 4-term attorney general. Before that, he served multiple terms in the General Assembly. He's actually never lost a race. Safe to assume that he's probably considered the front runner there.
Absolutely. I mean, he's a juggernaut in state politics, but this is not just going to be a coronation for him. He's going to have to knock off all these challenges. There's a lot of them. There's a Wilmington lawyer, Marcus Williams, who's run for a few offices before. He's got some experience. There is Orrick Quick, who's a pastor from High Point, getting into the race. There are Darrell Farrell from Jacksonville, Justin Dews of Concord. He's a really interesting candidate. He just got into the race today, actually. He's a Marine Corps veteran and a business owner, but also a progressive activist from out in Concord. So he's kind of got an interesting mix in his biography there.
That is interesting. That's why we often wait until the very last day to put a big list together on our website and other places, because you just never know who's going to sign up at the last minute. And if you haven't yet, like or subscribe this YouTube page. Now let's...
And then one other, Robert Cullen of Rocky Point as well. And
excuse me.
For the record, there are 6,065 people running for office in 2026.
Yeah,
so if we forget a name here or there, I apologize in advance. There's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, no kidding. Gosh, 6,000. That's incredible. All right, now let's go over to the Republican side, and this seat's open because 2-term U.S. Senator Thom Tillis decided not to run again after a feud with President Trump over the One Big Beautiful Bill. So we have people who are trying to fill his seat on the Republican side, starting with Michael Whatley. Let's start with him.
Yes, Michael Whatley, obviously the biggest name, the former chairman of the state GOP, the former chairman of the national GOP. I mean, he is, clearly the establishment pick, and he's got Trump's endorsement, which typically is all you need to win a Republican primary. But you've reported that some of the MAGA base isn't necessarily happy with Trump's pick of Whatley, and they are looking to some other candidates.
Well, I think it's fair to say that on the Republican side, there's a healthy amount of skepticism of anyone who's viewed as part of the quote-unquote establishment. And so that's what we're seeing there is people may have disagreed with some of the decisions Whatley made as the top executive in the state party and the RNC and places like that. You have to make some difficult decisions there. And so he has some opponents, it sounds like, who are trying to run to his right.
Yeah, a couple big names. Don Brown, he's a lawyer from outside of Charlotte, and he kind of made his name representing some January 6th defendants, some people who had sued over COVID vaccines, and he's got a grassroots following. Another person with a grassroots following, and even more than that, is Michelle Morrow. People will remember her. She ran for Wake County School Board, and then she ran for State Superintendent of Education. She didn't win either of those races, but she actually staged a pretty surprise upset last year in the GOP primary, knocking off the establishment candidate, something that she's hoping to do again this year.
So we've got Brown and Morrow trying to run to Whatley's right, and we've got some other candidates on the ballot too.
Yeah, there's actually a few from the triangle here. There's Elizabeth Temple from Smithfield. You have a business consultant named Brian Johnson from Garner, and then someone named Margot Dupree from Charlotte. So this is a jam-packed primary. I mean, just even more people than are running on the Democratic side of the aisle.
Right, and the primary's coming up March 5th. So by the time you get back from the holidays, from New Year's Eve, that's probably when we're going to start seeing all these ads on your phone, online, perhaps on our own television station. But they're going to come fast and furious.
There's not a lot of time to campaign for this. So when you have fast primaries like we have here in North Carolina, it really advantages the candidates with the money
I
and
was-
with the name recognition.
You beat me to my question. I was
Sorry.
going to say, who does it help that there's not that much time between now and when people actually start? Well, and voting starts even before March 5th. You can request absentee ballots, several weeks before that even.
Yeah, mail-in voting will start, early voting will start by January or February. I mean, it's going to be on us immediately.
And so who does that help?
Well, it helps the candidates who people already know. And, those are the Roy Coopers, the Michael Whatleys, maybe even the Michelle Morrows of the world. Right. Like I said, Don Brown, of course, also has his grassroots following. And the other candidates are, frankly, going to have to play catch up. And if some of them have money that they can put into their own campaigns, that's where we see, candidates really can help themselves. Because a lot of times the national parties or the state parties don't want to get involved in these primaries. Mm-hmm. So what you see is candidates coming in and say, okay, well, I don't have a ton of name recognition, but I've got $3 million of my own money that I can throw at this to try to get myself elected to Congress, get some ads out there. And so, we could see plenty of that as well.
What does that mean for voters? Oftentimes, it means the candidates that don't have as much money, well, you'll get maybe more of an opportunity to meet them on the campaign trail because their strategy will have to be just meeting people. That means if they might come to the local Republican dinner, Republican event, or Democratic side, the local luncheon, you might have a chance to meet some of these people. You should check for that starting next year. Now, let's move down a rank from U.S. Senate to Congress.
Yes.
Our congressional seats, a lot of them are locked in, Republican, Democratic seats. But there are a couple with interesting primaries. Let's start here in the triangle and work our way out. What's the most interesting one?
Well, here in the triangle, there's a really fascinating Democratic primary to watch. And this is going to be a rematch, actually, of 2022. That was after David Price had retired. It was an open seat. And Nida Alam, who's a Durham County Commissioner, and Valerie Foushee, and Clay Aiken, if people remember,
oh my gosh,
squared off in that race back in 2022.
Sorry, Clay. I had forgotten you. Forgot he ran for that seat.
But Clay Aiken's not running this time. But Nida Alam is running again. Foushee won that primary in 2022, and she won it because AIPAC, the American Israel PAC, and some Bitcoin billionaires poured a ton of money into that race on Foushee's behalf.
And so Alam is seen as being more to the left than Foushee. But things have changed even in 2 years because of what we've seen coming out of Gaza. The Democratic base has shifted and maybe in Alam's favor when it comes to taking money from pro-Israel PACs.
For sure. And I mean, Foushee is by no means a moderate Democrat. She is very progressive. I think it's just that Alam is more progressive. And I mean, this is a district that has Chapel Hill, Durham, parts of Wake County. This is literally one of the most liberal districts in the entire country.
To that point, fun fact, I think, what was it, the New York Times or something did some analysis after the presidential election and found that Durham County, where this congressional district is, was the fifth most liberal county in the country?
Yeah.
Don't quote me,
right.
But it was something like that. You can look it up. Among the most liberal counties in the nation.
Yeah, the point is whoever wins this primary is going to go to Congress.
Yeah.
And it's really going to be a race to the left. Yeah. And previously, this outside money helped Foushee gather the voters that she needed. And she's now got a built-in advantage as a member of Congress for several years. She can point to votes that she's taken, stances that she's made. So, incumbents have a built-in advantage, of course, but one advantage that Alam could have this year is that Foushee this summer pledged to not take any more money from AIPAC. And so, it's possible that Alam saw an opening, said, okay, if they're not going to be, getting into this race again, dumping a couple $1 million against me, then maybe she has a better chance this time.
That is interesting. Okay, so let's pivot to North Carolina's one and only, toss-up district. It used to be formerly only toss-up district. It's changed since the state legislature redrew the maps and redrew it in a way that now favors Republicans. But that's where incumbent Democrat Don Davis is located. And Republicans are lining up to take their shot at him now that the map is more in their party's favor. Who are they?
Yeah, well, we are actually recording this just hours before President Trump is set to be in Rocky Mount giving a speech later today. And I would not be surprised if these half dozen Republicans who are running in this primary are in Rocky Mount just trying to bang down the doors.
Oh, I'm sure.
Coliseum there, and just trying
Please
to get
endorse
some,
us. Please endorse me.
Because
Yeah.
Trump has not made an endorsement in this race yet, and they are intentionally taking it slow. I actually spoke with Richard Hudson a couple of weeks ago during candidate filing, he's a congressman from here in North Carolina, but he's also the head of the GOP's efforts nationwide to recruit candidates for Congress. And he's working with President Trump on figuring out which of these candidates should get the endorsement, if any of them. He mentioned that Trump might stay out of it and just kind of let them fight it out.
Right. And so we're seeing one person who's run before, and Lori Buckout. She was a late entry. She lost to Don Davis last time, but she's re-entered the race.
Yeah, that was a really interesting development in this race because a lot of people thought that she wasn't going to run, and in fact, she had been giving money to Sandy Roberson, the Rocky Mount mayor, who was running, but then Sandy Roberson dropped out. We reported this. Obviously, Rocky Mount is facing a lot of financial difficulties in City Hall, and he said, look, I need to stay on as mayor and deal with that. So after he dropped out, she went from being a supporter of his to jumping into the race. Now, in 2024, that district voted for Trump, but Buckout still couldn't win it. It went for Don Davis, who's a moderate Democrat. And so I think a lot of Republicans are going to look at it and say, hey, you couldn't win this when it was, something that Trump won. It's going to be a blue wave in 2026. How are you going to win it now?
Right.
So, but she's got a lot of money. She's got experience. She's got a great resume. So, she could.
Right. She was a colonel, I believe.
Yeah, she's a retired Army officer, and then she and her husband have both been very successful in their post-military careers in the defense contracting world.
One thing I think that maybe hurt her in the last election was that she had only moved to North Carolina in recent years, right?
Yes, she was seen as somewhat of a transplant seeking a congressional seat.
So not necessarily a slam dunk for her in the Republican primary, especially with a couple of other people running.
Yeah, you've got State Senator Bobby Hanig, who represents the Outer Banks, and really kind of ginned up some grassroots support with the whole shrimping debate at the state legislature.
That's right.
People may or may not remember that, but the legislature essentially tried to make it harder for shrimpers to do their jobs, and hundreds of them just poured into Raleigh.
And he led that effort.
And he did. He led this effort against his own party leadership in the Senate, kind of went out on a branch to defy GOP leaders, but made a good political bet because he ended up killing that bill. And now he's got a lot of people, a lot of fishermen out on the coast who really like him. In this district, when it was recently redrawn to be less favorable to Don Davis, got in a lot more coastal counties. So I think Bobby Hanig feels pretty good about that. You've also got Lenoir County Commissioner Eric Rouse from Kinston. He's seen as someone who could get a lot of support from the MAGA base. You've got Carteret County Sheriff Asa Buck, who obviously has a long career in law enforcement. He can run on that. Another Carteret County person, actually, Ashley Nicole Russell, who's a successful lawyer from out there on the beach.
Interesting.
So she's jumping into that race as well.
It seems like the type of race where if Trump did endorse, it could decide things and tip it in favor of one person, and that might be that.
There's not really a nobody in this race. All of them are fairly prominent, at least in their own individual communities, but this is a district that covers probably 24 counties across northeastern North Carolina, a lot of people. So, it's going to be tough for any one of them to stand out unless they have a ton of money to pour into the race, or they can get President Trump's endorsement.
In the meantime, in both the U.S. Senate race and these congressional seats, or at least the one where incumbent Don Davis is, the other party would love to see a competitive race. Roy Cooper is probably sitting back and saying, yes, Republicans in the primary, spend all your money on this, attack each other. That only helps him.
Yeah.
The same in the congressional races. All right.